Brothers and sisters, you have been told stories about Africa, stories written by those who never wished for you to return. They told you we are poor, that we are backward, that you are different from us. But today I speak to you not as the leader of a country, but as your brother. I speak to the sons and daughters of Africa, who were taken by force, stripped of their names, their gods, their languages, but never their spirit. Let me ask you, how long will you live in a land where your value is debated in courtrooms, where your worth is measured by how quiet you stay, and your history begins with slavery? How long will you march, protest, and bleed for justice that arrives too late, or not at all? This is not just your struggle, it is ours. Because the chains that were placed on your ancestors were forged in the same fires that colonized Africa. You were enslaved, we were colonized. Different paths, same pain, and now even in 2025, the chains are just invisible. They are made of economic dependency, political control, and cultural erasure. But here is the truth they don't want you to hear. Africa is rising. Africa is waking up. Africa is no longer begging, it is building. We are reclaiming our land, our resources, and our dignity. And we are calling you home, not just to visit, but to be part of a mission to rebuild what was broken, to reconnect what was divided. You have power, knowledge, and experience. Bring it back to your roots. Invest in your homeland. Build schools, businesses, media, and technology with us. Let the African in America return to Africa, not as a stranger but as a liberator, because your fight for identity ends where it began, here in the land of your ancestors. Do not let them convince you that you are not African, that your blood, your soul, your strength is not from this soil. You are Africa, and Africa needs you now more than ever. The future of black liberation does not lie in begging for a seat at their table. It lies in building our own. Rise up, reconnect, reclaim. They took your bodies, but they never took your soul. They chained your wrists, but they could not chain your mind. They renamed you, but they could not unwrite your origin. And today I speak to you, the descendants of kings and queens, of warriors and builders, not as a stranger, but as your brother. They said you were lost, but you were never lost, you were taken. Torn from the coasts of Africa. Forced into ships where cries became lullabies, where the only freedom left was in death. For generations, your ancestors endured what no human should ever endure, plantations, lashes, auctions, and humiliation. But even in the heart of suffering, they sang songs in tongues they could not fully remember. They braided rice seeds into their daughters' hair, not just to feed them but to preserve life, to preserve Africa. They fought in every way they could, silently and loudly, never allowing the flame of identity to die. But here's the tragedy. They did not just steal people. They tried to steal memory. They built systems, both in Africa and in America, to convince you that your story began on a slave ship, that your culture started in chains, that you were born into servitude. They told you Africa is poor, broken, and backward, that you are better off without her. They taught us on this side of the ocean, that you forgot us, and they taught you that we don't want you back. This is the greatest lie ever told, and that lie was necessary. Because they knew, if the African in Africa and the African in America remembered each other, remembered our shared roots, our shared pain, our shared mission, then the system built on our division would collapse overnight. So they filled your schools with false histories. They glorified their conquerors, and erased your heroes. They taught you to idolize those who enslaved you and fear the land that birthed you. And in the process many of you began to ask, am I even African? But I am here to tell you, yes, you are. You are African because Africa lives in your bones, in your rhythm, in your resilience, in your art, your strength, your instinct to rise when the world tries to keep you down. You may not speak your ancestral language, but your struggle speaks louder. You may not wear African clothes, but you carry African pride. You may not know your specific tribe, but your soul remembers the drums, the land, the fire. You are not disconnected, you were intentionally severed. But the connection was never broken, it was just buried, and now it's time to dig it up. Because here is the truth they don't want you to realize. The blood that built America is African blood. The culture that defines America, its music, its language, its power was carved from your suffering and brilliance. And yet, even with all your contributions, they still ask you to prove your worth, to be quiet, to blend in, to not make it about race, to wait for justice. But how long will you wait? How many more generations must be sacrificed before we understand that our liberation is not in their hands but in our unity? That's why I speak to you not as a political leader, but as a soldier of truth. Because Africa is not just the past, it is the future. The world is shifting. Africa is awakening. The youth are rising. They are rejecting colonial puppets and foreign domination. They are ready to build a new Africa, but not alone. We need you, not as tourists, not as outsiders, but as returning sons and daughters. Your place is here, not just because you were taken, but because you still belong. Imagine what we could build if we combine your knowledge of global systems with our control of local resources. If we merge your innovation with our tradition. If we fight, not from two sides of the ocean, but side by side under one vision. This is not a call for charity, it's not about guilt, it's about purpose. You were taken but never broken, and now it's time to reclaim what was stolen. Your identity, your pride, your place in this global fight. Africa is not weak. Africa was weakened, and you, African in America, are not lost. You were stolen, but today you are being called back. Let us be the generation that ends this exile. Let us be the ones who no longer speak of diaspora as distance, but as destiny. Let us reconnect the chain they tried so hard to break, and when we do, let that be the beginning of our true freedom. Because if they feared us when we were separated, imagine what happens when we unite. Africa is waiting. Not with shame but with open arms. Not to remind you of the pain, but to rebuild the future together. You were taken, but never broken, and now you are being called home. Will you answer? They told you that your story was different from ours. They drew borders between your pain and ours. They said your chains were made of iron and ours of ignorance. They made you believe that your struggle was American, and ours was African, as if we were two different peoples, two different destinies. But I stand before you today to tell you what they fear most. Our wounds are shared. The same hands that stole you from your land came back for what was left behind. The same empires that built ships to carry your ancestors across the ocean returned with guns, flags and Bibles to claim our soil. They didn't just steal human beings, they came for our gold, our diamonds, our oil, and our souls. They did not care what continent we were on. To them Africa was a mine, and you were the product. You were enslaved in fields. We were enslaved on our own land. You were whipped into obedience. We were forced to watch as our kings were killed, our languages outlawed, our religions demonized. In America they sold your children. In Africa they sold entire nations. You were made into labor. We were made into colonies. But make no mistake, we were both made into property. Do you see it now? There is no you and us. There is only we. We are two sides of the same story, written by the same enemy. And that enemy knew what it was doing. It made sure we never looked at each other. While you fought to survive in a land that treated you as less than human, we were brainwashed into thinking you were no longer one of us. While you struggled to remember your roots, we were taught that you had forgotten us. It was never about freedom, it was always about control and division. Look at the pattern. The moment a black man or woman rises with true independence, whether in America or Africa, they are either killed, discredited, or silenced. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Fred Hampton, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Muammar Gaddafi, different lands, same fate. The assassins may change uniforms, but the mission never changes. It's always been about keeping the African mind in chains, whether on plantations or in parliaments. So when I say our wounds are shared, I don't say it for sympathy. I say it so you remember who you are, because your healing is tied to ours. Your freedom is incomplete without ours. And our future is delayed, without you in it. Let me be clear. Africa is not asking for pity, and we are not begging for return. We are waking up, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger. We are breaking the chains of France, of the West, of puppets and foreign interests. We are taking back our gold, our land, our dignity, but a body is still incomplete, without its heart. And you, the children of Africa in America, you are part of that heart. What happens to you in America? The injustice, the racism, the killings, the poverty, is not isolated. It is part of a system that needs Africa weak and needs you confused. They want you to fight for inclusion, while they loot your ancestral home. They want you to believe you have no roots, while they dig deep into your soil to steal your future. But I tell you now, your place is not in their system. Your place is in your own power. We must stop seeing the ocean as a separation. It is not a wall, it is a bridge. It is not a divide, it is a link. Your wounds began here, and healing must begin here too. Relearn your history, reclaim your identity, revive your connection, not to romanticize Africa. We have our struggles, but so do you. And together, our strength is unstoppable. Imagine a world where African Americans are no longer begging for fair treatment, but building empires alongside African nations. Imagine schools in Africa, run by African Americans teaching both truth and science. Imagine industries, where the diaspora funds innovation on the continent. Imagine military alliances, media networks, cultural exchanges, all black-owned, black-led and unshakable. This is not a dream, it is a necessity. They have always feared our unity, because united we are a global force, not a minority, not a victim, but a superpower. Economically, culturally, spiritually. I do not say this to inspire emotion, I say this to ignite action. This is your time, not to protest endlessly in a land that never intended to let you thrive, but to rise globally, to build something they cannot infiltrate. To heal with us, to grow with us, to lead with us. Because we were both wounded by the same enemy. Now we must rise with the same mission. The African in America. The African in Africa. No longer divided. No longer waiting. No longer asking. It is time to rebuild the story they tried to erase, together. They feared what would happen if we ever looked into each other's eyes and saw the same soul. They told you that Africa abandoned you, that your ancestors were sold and forgotten. They told us that you had become something else, no longer African, no longer ours, just a lost people trying to be white. And in those lies they succeeded in doing what centuries of violence alone could not. They separated one body into two broken parts. You in America were told that Africa is poor, dangerous and uncivilized. We in Africa were told that you are arrogant, disconnected and no longer part of us. These weren't innocent misunderstandings. These were intentional strategies of control. Look closely at history, and you will see, they never feared your skin. They feared your memory. They feared that one day, you would remember who you are, that we would remember who you are, and that together we would remember what we're capable of. Why do you think they never taught African Americans about real African history? Why do you think we were never taught about the freedom fighters and scholars of the diaspora? Why is our education, both in Africa and abroad, filled with European heroes, but silent on African unity? Because knowledge is dangerous. Connection is dangerous. Unity is a threat. They needed us separated. Because divided we are manageable. We are statistics. We are hashtags. We are colonies. But united we are a storm they cannot stop. And this is not ancient history. It is alive today. You see it in the way your struggles in America are treated as isolated incidents. You see it in how African nations are encouraged to look to Europe or China for partnership, while ignoring their own children abroad. And what has that division brought us? You are still fighting for dignity, in a country that refuses to see your humanity. We are still fighting for sovereignty on a continent that should be the richest in the world. You are building wealth in a system designed to keep you poor. We are sitting on gold and uranium, while our people live in darkness. Two battles. Same war. But here is what they did not count on. We are waking up. Across the continent we are breaking free from the hands of those who have long controlled our destiny. We are removing puppets, rejecting exploitation, and restoring pride. But we know something very clearly. We cannot finish this mission without you. You are part of this fight. You may have grown up in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, but your roots are deeper than American soil. Your blood speaks a language your ears may have forgotten, but your soul remembers. And we, in Africa, must stop acting like you are foreigners. You are not guests in Africa. You are the missing sons and daughters of this land. They divided us to weaken us. So our response must be to reunite and rise. We must build new bridges, not just of words but of action. We must create systems that link African nations with the diaspora in real ways. Through education, through trade, through culture, through defense. Imagine what it would mean for our youth to learn from African American teachers who understand both worlds. Imagine our governments advised by economists from the diaspora who know the tricks of the Western system. Imagine our armies trained by brothers and sisters who understand resistance not in theory but in their blood. This is not about romanticism. It is about strategy. We need each other. And if you feel lost, know that Africa is not here to judge you. We are not angry at you. We are waiting for you, not as saviors, not as tourists, but as builders, as equals, as family. This is how we win. Not with slogans, not with handouts, but with unity that terrifies those who tried to keep us apart. Let them watch in fear as we remember who we are. Let them tremble as we connect our struggle with purpose. Let them realize too late what they tried to prevent for centuries, that we are not enemies, not strangers but reflections. Let our reunion be louder than the lies. Let it shake the very ground they stand on. Let it mark the end of their illusion and the beginning of our liberation. They divided us to weaken us. Now we reunite to become unstoppable. The lion is no longer asleep. For too long Africa was seen as the wounded continent, broken, begging, dependent. For too long we were spoken for, exploited, laughed at, and pitied. They told the world we were helpless, backward, incapable of standing without their support. But let them look again, because what is happening now across this continent is not a cry for help. It is a war cry for liberation. Africa is awakening. Not just politically but spiritually, not just economically but mentally. We are rising, and we are no longer asking for permission. The time of begging is over. The time of waiting is over. The youth of Africa, the farmers, the students, the soldiers, the women, the forgotten, they are rising with one voice. This is our land and we will no longer kneel on it. But understand this. This awakening did not come peacefully. It came from pain. From watching our nations robbed of their wealth, while our children sleep hungry. From watching puppet governments sell our futures to foreign powers. From watching our resources power Europe, while our villages stay in darkness. We saw our heroes assassinated, our economies hijacked, our identities erased. And still we survived. And now we fight. We are tearing off the masks of false democracy, where leaders wear suits but answer to foreign masters. We are refusing to be tools of the West, to be laboratories for their failed systems, or dumping grounds for their industries. No more will we be lectured about governance by nations built on slavery and genocide. No more will we trade our gold for crumbs, or our sovereignty for aid with strings attached. They called it independence, but they never left. They replaced chains with debt, armies with banks, governors with presidents they could control. That is not freedom, that is neocolonialism. And it is dying. We are not building this new Africa in isolation, we are building it with you. You see, they want you to believe Africa is only a place of problems. But what they won't show you is what's happening today. Youth-led revolutions that reject foreign military bases, communities reclaiming land, local industries emerging without foreign interference, and nations cutting the strings of colonial currencies. What they fear is already happening. The African is remembering who he is. But we must go further. Because even as we rise, we are incomplete without you, our family in the diaspora. They took you from us, made you strangers to your own origin, and then taught us to forget you. But that was their strategy, not our truth. The truth is, this is your home. This is your fight too. Africa is not rising because of foreign investment. Africa is rising because of self-determination, because of sacrifice, because of truth, and we are asking you to stand with us, not as outsiders, not as observers, but as part of this revolution. We do not want your charity, we want your involvement, your wisdom, your courage, your connection. Come invest in your continent, not with money alone but with presence, with innovation, with vision. Come teach, build, collaborate. Create new media that tells our real stories. Build schools that empower, not indoctrinate. Launch industries that serve our people, not exploit them. And if you cannot come now, then connect. Organize. Build bridges from wherever you are. Let African Americans speak to Africans directly. Let the African in London, in Jamaica, in Brazil, know that this continent is not just in your past, it is in your future. This is not about passports. It's about purpose. Because let me tell you this, no empire can stop us when we are united. They built systems to keep us divided, but those systems are collapsing. They no longer control the narrative. We are writing our own stories now, and we will write them in Swahili, in Wolof, in French, in English, in Yoruba, and in the tongues of those who were stolen but still remember the beat of the drum. We are not looking for saviors, we are awakening lions, and we are calling our pride home. There is a seat at this table for every African soul, no matter how far you were taken. There is work to do, and your hands are needed. There is healing to be done, and your voice is part of it. There is a future to build, and it cannot be built without the full African family. So come not because you are broken but because you are part of something unbreakable. Africa is awakening. And when the world asks, who built this new Africa? Let history say, it was all of us. You've been searching for where you belong, and the answer has been calling you all along, from across the ocean, from the soil of your ancestors, from the blood that never forgot you. You are not lost. You were taken. But now the world is shifting, and I say to you, wherever you are the missing piece. For too long, you have been told to fight for a place in a system that was never built for you. You have marched, protested, organized. You've spoken truth in rooms that never truly listened. You've built wealth only to watch it be stripped by laws, systems, and silence. You've carried the pain of being black in a world that sees your existence as resistance. But what if I told you, your fight was never meant to be only survival? It was meant to lead you back to where the war began, and where the healing must begin too. The lie they fed us both here in Africa and there in the diaspora, is that we are separate, that you are no longer African, that Africa is not your home. But blood cannot be colonized. Memory cannot be fully erased. You are not foreign to us. You are familiar. You are family. But here's the truth they never wanted either side to realize. We've been trying to fix a broken house without the full family inside it. Africa's building, resisting, rising, but we are doing it with one hand tied behind our back. That missing hand is you. Because in you lies the power they fear most, the combination of ancestral fire and global knowledge. You've studied in their institutions. You've navigated their politics, their economies, their media. You've learned how their world operates. Now imagine what happens when that wisdom is used not to assimilate but to liberate. You know how their systems work. We know how our people live. You've seen their strategies from the inside. We've felt their consequences from the outside. You've been in the belly of the beast and we've been devoured by its reach. We are not asking for charity. We don't want saviors. We've seen what happens when outsiders come, claiming to save Africa. They only save themselves. What we want, what we need, is reconnection. Authentic, powerful, unapologetic reconnection. Come not with pity but with partnership. Come not to lead us, but to stand beside us. Come not because you are better but because you are ours. You bring what many of us here have been denied, access, training, perspective. And we offer you what many of you have been denied, belonging, identity, and purpose beyond survival. It is a perfect fit, not because we are perfect people but because we are one people, split by force, not by choice. Imagine what happens when African scientists from abroad join with those at home to innovate solutions for our soil, our water, our health. Imagine African entrepreneurs across the diaspora investing directly in African infrastructure, creating industries not controlled by foreign corporations but by African minds. Imagine media, fashion, art, no longer imitating the West, but telling our stories in our voice, with our power. Imagine a young African child, growing up not being told to dream of Paris or New York, but to dream of Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, because her heroes came home. That is why I say, you are the missing piece. Without you we can resist, but with you, we can rebuild. Without you we can rise, but with you we can rise together. We don't need another generation asking where they belong. We need a generation saying, I belong everywhere my people are. We don't need more diaspora debating their identity. We need the diaspora declaring their power. The time is now. Not 10 years from now. Not after permission. Not when it's safe. Now. If you can come home, come. Touch the soil. See the faces that look like yours. Speak to the people who never forgot you. And if you cannot come just yet, then reach. Build bridges. Invest. Collaborate. Share knowledge. Break the narrative. Tear down the walls that colonizers built between us. Because Africa is not rising alone. Africa is rising for all her children, those who stayed and those who were scattered. You are not outsiders in this movement. You are the fuel it needs to go further, faster, stronger. Let them watch in fear as we, the children of Africa from every corner of the globe, reunite. Not under their flag, not in their image, but in our truth. Let them see that the African family, once torn apart, is reassembling, not to beg but to build. Not to ask, but to act. You were never meant to be just a survivor. You were meant to be a builder of nations. So come, not because you're incomplete without Africa, but because Africa's incomplete without you. The chains that once bound our bodies were forged by hands hungry for power, built on the suffering of our people. But today the true chains are not iron or rope. They are the walls of separation, the lies of division, the scars of disconnection that keep us apart. And it is these walls that we must break down if we are to truly be free. For too long we have looked outward, to those who have long profited from our pain, hoping for justice, equality or recognition. We have waited for apologies from those who built empires on our backs. We have demanded rights from systems designed to deny us, and still we are reminded that justice is slow, that equality is fragile, and that true liberation is elusive. But the fight for black liberation will not be won by pleading with those who benefited from our suffering. It will not come from courts or parliaments that protect the powerful. It will not be handed down by those who continue to divide us. No, liberation will come when we turn back to each other. When we recognize that our true power lies not in external validation, but in our unity. When we remember that Africa is not just a distant land or a history lesson, but the living heart of who we are, our origin, our future, and our strength. The colonizers tried to make us forget this truth. They scattered our families across oceans, rewrote our histories, and imposed foreign identities upon us. They told you that you no longer belonged to Africa, that you were something else now, something lesser, something disconnected. They told us that you were strangers, foreigners, even threats. This was their strategy, keep us apart, so we could never build the power we deserve. But no matter how far they took you, your spirit remained African. No matter how hard they tried to erase us, our roots remain intertwined beneath the surface. And now as Africa awakens and the diaspora rises, the moment to reunite is upon us. Reconnection is liberation. To reconnect is to reclaim what was stolen, not just land or wealth, but identity, dignity, and purpose. It means breaking free from the narrative that divides us, and embracing the truth that we are one people, united by blood and struggle. This reconnection is not easy. It requires courage to face the wounds of history, the pain of separation, the bitterness of betrayal, the loss of time. It demands honesty about the mistakes made on both sides, and forgiveness where possible. It asks us to build new bridges of trust, where walls once stood. But it is necessary, because liberation is not complete when one part of us is free and the other remains chained. It is not freedom if our brothers and sisters across the sea still suffer from discrimination, violence, and erasure. It is not justice if African nations continue to be controlled by foreign powers, while the diaspora struggles for equality in foreign lands. True liberation means lifting each other up, standing together against the systems designed to divide us, and creating a future where all of us thrive. This means more than words. It means action. It means creating pathways for Africans in the diaspora to return, not as outsiders but as family. It means investing in our communities, sharing knowledge and building economies that serve our people. It means learning from each other's struggles and victories, and forging alliances that strengthen our collective power. It means standing united in the face of continued oppression, whether it comes in the form of racism abroad or neocolonialism at home. Africa is not just a place on a map. It is the source of our strength, the pulse in our veins, the song in our hearts. It is where our ancestors walked, where our stories began, and where our future is being forged. The time to reunite is now. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for a call. The history of our people demands that we rise together, here and now. We must reach across oceans, break down walls, and hold each other's hands in solidarity. When we do this, no force on earth can stop us. We will reclaim our narrative, restore our dignity, and build a future worthy of our ancestors' sacrifices. Reconnection is not just an act of love, it is the path to liberation. So to my brothers and sisters across the world I say, come home, not as guests or saviors, but as family. Stand with us, build with us, fight with us, because together we are unstoppable. Together we are free. The lion is awake. The family is calling. The time is now.